Will you go back to what was written, or will you keep riding the new cart to wherever it's taking you? Now, we've now walked through all four commands of Jeremiah 6:16 and examined both the promise and the warning that accompany them. But examination without application leaves us in exactly the same position as those of Judah who heard Jeremiah's words, acknowledged them as valid, and then went back to the new cart and changed nothing. And the call of the ancient paths, it's a call to action. It's specific, it's definite, it's personal, and it's communal. So let us close this teaching by asking the most practical question: what does actually walking in the ancient paths look like for a believer living in the 21st century? So let's answer this question beginning where David began, with some honest self-examination. Now, the first practical step in returning to the ancient paths is the most personally costly: honest self-examination. And this means going back to the scriptures with fresh eyes, not the eyes of a tradition that has already decided what they mean, but the eyes of a Berean who genuinely wants to know what Yahweh has actually said. And it means asking questions that the established religious structures, systems, and culture will not welcome. Now, does the scripture actually teach that the Sabbath was changed from the seventh day to the first? Does the scripture actually teach or actually describe Christmas and Easter as commanded observances, while the appointed feasts of Yahweh are described as abolished? Does the scripture actually declare that the dietary instructions of Torah no longer apply to those who walk with Yeshua? And when the honest answer to those questions are found, not the answers the tradition provides, but the answers the text actually provides, the next step is being willing to follow the truth wherever it leads, regardless of the cost to one's comfort, reputation, and religious standing or community. Now, David's return to the ancient paths cost him 3 months and required him to publicly acknowledge that the procession he had led with 30,000 plus men and the agreement of all his leaders had been wrong. This is not a small thing, friend, but the result of that honest self-examination and the humble correction was the presence of Yahweh arriving in Jerusalem. The cost of the return was real, but the fruit of the return was even better. Now, returning to the ancient paths, it's not a theological position to be held. It's a way of life to be lived. And the ancient paths Yahweh prescribed have always been intended to shape the entire rhythm of existence, not just Sunday mornings, but every day, every week, every year, and every season of life. Now, the seventh-day Sabbath is the most immediate and visible expression of the ancient paths in the rhythm of weekly life. It's Yahweh's gift to his people, a weekly appointment, a built-in rhythm of rest, if you will, and worship and family and study and delight in Yahweh and his creation. It requires stopping, which is exactly what Jeremiah's first command said: stand. The Sabbath is the weekly practice of standing at the crossroads, stepping off the road of ordinary labor and activity, and resting in Yahweh's presence. And Yahweh's appointed feasts are the ancient paths of the covenant calendar. They're not ethnic customs of a particular people. They are Yahweh's scheduled appointments. His feast, as Leviticus 23 explicitly declares, are rich with the history of redemption and layered with prophetic significance, pointing to the redemptive work of the Messiah. Passover, for example, it's not a Jewish holiday, if you will, that Christians replaced with Easter. It is the feast in which the Messiah himself was slain, the Lamb of Yahweh whose blood was applied to the doorposts of heaven, if you will, and it is one of Yahweh's ancient paths waiting to be walked in all of its fullness by those who are in covenant with him through Yeshua. The proper instructions of the Torah, the commands governing how we treat the vulnerable, how we pursue justice, how we speak truthfully, how we conduct our financial lives, how we care for those even on the outer fringes of society, are the ancient paths of community and vocation. They are not abstract principles. They are specific, lived instructions for a people set apart to be different from the nations around them in the most practical and visible demonstrations of daily existence.